Right then, sensational Sunday here. Looks like it's trying to be a nice day. Cloudy, but I think the sun's trying to come out. So it might turn into something. Yesterday was nice. Yeah, got into the 70s. Yep, it's a good working day. Yeah. Well, as you saw in my last video, I was down at the turd and we were doing the big nasty. Yeah, doing the pour on the countertop. hmm So I showed you the seal coat that I put down, but I didn't film the flood coat because Scrunchy showed up and um, I needed her help with that. Um, that was the big deal. That was the final gloss coat on that counter. So it was kind of that process, pouring resin on a large object like that is a very stressful procedure. Yeah. Um, you got to mix the product properly, and then you have to pour it, and then you have to spread it out evenly, and then you have to use that torch to take out all the air bubbles so that you get a deep, clear finish. Yeah, it's time sensitive. You've got about 20 minutes to work with the product before it starts to set up into a sticky sludge, and then it won't be workable anymore. Yeah. So the base coat, the seal coat, was not too bad. Everything had to be covered, but that pour coat, or the top coat, that's the critical one. So on that top coat, I was pouring it thick so that it would fill up and come flush with the edges that I had put around the counter with the trim boards. That flood coat had to be deep and it had to be spread out evenly. It had to be done quickly so that it all flowed and evened out into one smooth sheet of glass, essentially. Yeah. So when Scrunchy showed up, I got her help with that. Um, I mixed up the remaining batch out of the first kit that we had, and I poured that on about half of the counter. And I spread that out with the trowel, with the scraper, and had that started to level out. While that was taking place, I mixed up another batch, another 32 ounces of product, and then continued the pour around the rest of the counter, and then had to smooth all that out and let that level, and then I had to go over the whole thing with the butane torch to pop all the air bubbles. And yeah, now one of the phenomena that she was so instrumental in helping me with was where I had nailed those boards to the edge of the counter. I should have thought of this. I should have thought ahead that this would happen, and I should have done something to prevent it from happening. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was bad. What I should have done was put a bead of silicone around the edge of the counter first, on the counter, and then attach the boards to the counter, the edge of the counter. The silicone would have provided a seal all the way along that edge, and the resin wouldn't have dripped through between the countertop and the edge boards and started dripping on the floor. It did this in a couple of spots. Yep, she observed it happening, and from that moment on, she babysat those spots to keep the resin from dripping on the floor. She put paper towels on the underside to try to catch it. We put an old towel down on the floor to try to catch it. Yeah. So while I'm running around pouring resin and smoothing it out, smoothing it to the edges and things like this, she's focused on those two spots that were giving us some problems, where the resin was dripping through and down onto the floor, and maintaining those so it didn't turn into a big disaster. But we got the whole thing poured. It looks really good. It's not perfect, but it looks good. Good enough for government work, as they say. And it's cured. Now, when I left yesterday, because it was getting late, it was getting on 6 o'clock. When I left, I forgot to do something, or I did something that I shouldn't have done. I left lights on in the building for security purposes, but I left the over-counter light above that counter on. And I also left the kitchen light on. I shouldn't have done that, thinking, because there are bugs in the building. Every fall we have this mass migration of Asian lady beetles that, when it starts to get cold, they gravitate to your house and they start looking for winter hibernation in your walls. They overwinter in your walls, and my trailer was seeing a large amount of those Asian lady beetles around the windows and things like that. As a result, some of them were in the building. And hold on, I gotta do some work on this pipe. Some of them were in the building, flying around. Well, they're attracted to light, and they're clumsy. They don't fly very well. They bump into things and drop. And as I was driving home last night, I was like, oh no. I left that light on over the counter where that fresh sticky resin is, and those darn ladybugs are going to be attracted to that light. They're going to bump into it, drop into the resin. And I'm going to come back next week or whatever, and I'm going to have ladybugs glued into the top of that table. Ugh. So on the way home, I said a prayer to Yahweh to prevent that from happening. Only He can stop that from happening, because I screwed up and left the lights on. Ah, man. But anyway, the counter looks great. Yeah, Scrunchy's really impressed. It turned out really well. The best it's going to be. Major improvement from what was in there before. Just a piece of plywood with some stain and some polyurethane on it that was all scratched and carved up and stained and things like that. That mountain scene graphic that I put on there looks really good buried underneath that resin. I'm happy with it. So we finished that up, and we were in a hurry to get back up here before the deer came out. And when we come rolling into the house here, we come rolling into the neighborhood, so to speak. I'm like, boy, it's awful dark in here. And as I was driving in, I saw a wire. I almost hit it with the rack on the Jeep. There was a wire drooping over the road. And then in front of that, I saw a big tree. Turns out it was a tree branch, but it looked like a tree was laying partially across the road. So what had happened was an oak tree that's in Rob's Woods across the road had core rot. And 3/4 of the way up the tree, there was a big branch that was coming out of that, and the core rot caused that branch to fall. Well, there's overhead power lines that run through Rob's Woods from pole to telephone pole or power pole to power pole. That branch fell right on those wires and ripped them right out of the pole. There was no power in the neighborhood. House was dark. This means no heat. This means no water. This means no septic lift station down here. Nothing. I live out in the country now. All of that stuff to operate requires electricity. So, we come in the house. I am not prepared for that sort of situation. So all I had was a flashlight. I collect kerosene lanterns. Yeah, old school 1800s, 1900s kerosene lantern. Yeah, I collect them. Kind of, sort of. I'm not obsessed with it, like some people are with collecting, but I have a few. No kerosene for those lanterns. So they're useless. Yeah. So we had no light. So I ran around and I grabbed my motion activated battery operated shower lights that I installed a while back. And that was our light. I tried to call Wisconsin Public Service and report an outage. Boy, was that a lesson in frustration. Your account is not recognized, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what? Scrunchy's like, well, you have 3 accounts with them. They must be getting confused as to which location has a service outage. I tried like 3 times. Couldn't get through. Finally gave up. I walked next door here to Lisa's place. That's Brad's sister. And we walked over there and I talked to her and asked if anybody had reported the outage, and they said they had. When we were outside, I could hear generators running. Lisa, next door, has one of those great big Generac whole house standby generator systems. Yeah, so when the power goes out like this, that generator automatically comes on. It's running off of natural gas, and it supplies the whole house with power. Your fridge stays running, your well pump runs, your septic lift station runs, your heat runs, everything. Just like regular electricity, just that it takes over when you lose the main feed from the utility company. So she's doing okay. We're not. Now, thankfully, this wasn't in the dead of winter. This power outage didn't last very long. As we were leaving her house, walking back down the road, Wisconsin Public Service was already there assessing the situation. I talked to the guy. He said power would be restored in a couple of hours once they restrung that wire that had been knocked down by the tree and reconnected it. And sure enough, about 9:30, everything comes on. But Scrunchy was getting upset. Mm. And I was teasing her, of course. I'm like, gee, hon, this is trivial. This is just a little glitch. Yeah, but we can't have this. We can't have this. We, as in married, living together, warmed my heart. Yes, it did. Warm and fuzzy. She goes, we're getting a standby generator like Lisa has. Yeah, we're going to get one. I'll take my bonus next year and we're going to get one. I says, do you have any idea what those cost? No. $10,000 installed. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, but we got to have that. I can't deal with this. We got to have that. Now, it was in my grand scheme of things for major expenses for this house. One of those major expenses is an asphalt driveway. The other one was a standby generator system for the house. If this would have been in the dead of winter and we would have had an ice storm and a tree would have come down on that wire and Wisconsin Public Service couldn't get out here right away to deal with our particular issue because they had other issues that they were dealing with first, um, due to an ice storm. This was an isolated incident. A rotten branch on an oak tree decided, yep, I'm going to drop, and it knocked out our wire. If there was an ice storm or something in the middle of winter, everybody would be having problems. And there would be other situations that would be more important than us. Nursing homes that don't have standby generators. Um, all hospitals have them, but nursing homes, people with medical conditions, whatever the case may be, that are on oxygen, what you know what I mean? Other people would be more important in the list. We're getting a standby generator. We are getting a standby generator. Warm and fuzzy. So when she found out how much it cost, yeah, she was like, yeah, but we gotta have it. I'm like, all right, I like how you think. Instead of taking $10,000 and buying a toy like Kate and Rob do, and don't put any money into their house, um, or other people I know, um, we're gonna make wise financial investments, and so that's in the works. But that happened. Power came on eventually, and all is well. Kate and Rob. Um, Rob threw me under the bus. He has not said a word since. He knows he's sinned against the Great One, and he's hiding his head right now. He's realized that he betrayed. He's a Judas from the Bible, the guy that betrayed Jesus and ended up getting Jesus on the cross. Now, that was all planned, that was all orchestrated, that was supposed to happen. God ordained it to happen. But Judas is the one that ratted out Jesus to the soldiers, and they captured him, flogged him, and crucified him on a cross. Rob is a Judas Iscariot. He betrayed me. Yep. Kate and I had a nice long conversation last night. Yeah. Um, right away, she attacked me for betraying her, but I didn't. When I was giving Rob advice, I was giving him advice from my past experiences in being involved with Kate. How she is, how she thinks, how she behaves, how she, um, what her mental state is. I was relaying this information, educating Rob based on my actual experiences. Now, there was some assumption, speculation, and theory thrown in there, but I'm pretty sure that was accurate as well. So, Rob, this is what Scrunchy said, Rob threw me under the bus in an act of self preservation. When a person pleads their case and it's not working, they get desperate and they will throw all caution to the wind and try to blame others for the situation. So in this case, Rob is, well, Ken said this, Ken said that, you know, yeah. Ken said you would do this, or you would say that, or you would, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's, I'm not gonna lie, that sucks. I thought Rob was one of my best friends. Rob was gonna stand up at my wedding as my best man. Um, yeah, not so much. And he knows. He's feeling guilty right now for what he did. Yeah. But since I was talking to Kate, texting, she doesn't talk on the phone, texting. I got a little bit more information on her side of the story, which, knowing her like I do, I'm not so sure I believe all of it, number one. Number two, um, she's making a mountain out of a molehill. Mm-hmm. She's exaggerating things as a fatalist, amplifying them into a big deal, and using that as a fatalistic catalyst to end the marriage. So even Scrunchy said that. She's like, she's she's exaggerating this. It's nothing. Well, Scrunchy didn't really say it was nothing, but she said it's not a unforgivable sin. So Rob lost his temper. Rob got frustrated because Kate was resisting him and contradicting him, and he yelled at her, and he took off his wedding ring and he threw it at her. Now, she said he whipped his ring at my head as hard as he could. No. What? Did she see a red dot on her forehead from a laser sight on a gun and then that ring was coming? No. He took off his ring and he threw it at her in her direction. He whipped it at my head as hard as he could. No. Exaggerating the situation, fatalizing the situation. I don't know if I can get past this. Every time I look at him, I get creeped out. All I see is his rage. I don't want to touch him. I don't want to be near him. He creeps me out. They've had a relationship for about 6 years or so, or longer, been married for over a year. This is the first time he's had a major meltdown towards her. He's had meltdowns in her presence toward his neighbors back where they used to live because they didn't get along. Um, he was screaming at my daughter and called her a bitch, effing bitch. And I said, well, was she behaving like a bitch? Because an apple is an apple. You can't call an apple an orange. He was calling it like it was. Even in the face of um, betrayal from Rob, I still defended him. So Scrunchy's like, oh my God, she's making a mountain out of a molehill. This is an issue that if he apologized, he realized that he overreacted, and he apologized. You tuck it under the rug and you move on. Kate is dragging this out. I can't get past this. Uh, I can't get over this. This is an unforgivable event. Um, all I see is his anger. Yeah. So I told her straight up, I said, well, if you're going to drop the axe, if you're going to execute, don't string him along. If you've already made up your mind, drop the axe so the guy that can move on with his life. But she can't. She needs him. She has to use him to be able to try to keep that $435,000 house they bought together with her daughter. I told her straight up. She said, I'm keeping the house. I said, no, you're not. No way in hell a bank will let you have that mortgage on your meager income. Yeah, but I'm going to have renters. My daughter's going to rent. Her friends are going to rent. I said, so you're going to have a house full of miscreants, flaky miscreants, that can just decide at any time, no, I'm going to go move into town with my boyfriend. Bye, Mom. This ain't working out. No, no bank will give you a mortgage on the possibility that your renters are going to stick around and continue to obligate to pay their obligation. No. Banks want concrete financial proof of, oh, I gotta go. Scrunchy's coming.